Why, after 6 intergalactic conferences, has Earth never once sent a military officer to attend? Could they be hiding a deadly secret beneath their civilian attire? The thought gnawed at Ambassador Zorax as he adjusted his exoskeleton, the polished black surface reflecting the multicolored lights of Pivot Station's command plaza. Year 2567 Galactic Standard. Only 3 rotations until the 7th Intergalactic Peace Summit would begin. 6 summits had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Concord, and not once had they brought military representation. Most peculiar indeed. Zorax's 3 eyes blinked in succession as he ran his upper limb across the holographic display. The transparent projection showed profiles of each member species attending the conference, 27 in total, each sending their customary delegations. All except Earth. Computer, display Earth's delegation roster for Summit 7, Zorax commanded, his mandibles clicking softly. The hologram shifted, revealing 5 human faces with brief biographical information. Ambassador Tia Jackson, Chief Delegate; Samuel Wei, Xenocultural Attaché; Dr. Lena Okafor, Xenobiologist; Marcus Chen Reyes, Intergalactic Cuisine Specialist; Captain Nix Rodriguez, Security Detail Lead. Security Detail, Zorax muttered, but not military. This bothered him immensely. As a Vraxian and senior intelligence operative for the Concord, he understood the delicate dance of intergalactic diplomacy. Every species displayed strength through their military representatives, not to threaten, but to ensure mutual respect and understanding. The Vraxians brought war supremes. The Zetulians sent military commanders. Even the peaceful Lumrians always included their defense coordinator. Yet Earth, for 6 consecutive summits, had sent only civilian representatives. Why? Zorax's inner eyelid flickered, a sign of concentration among his kind. What are they hiding? He tapped a sequence on his communication band. Connect me to the archive vault. Priority access, Intelligence Directorate. A moment later, a holographic connection appeared. An older Vraxian with faded exoskeleton plates nodded in acknowledgement. Archivist Thrax, I need complete files on Earth's attendance records for all previous summits. Include any incident reports, security anomalies, or diplomatic protests. Purpose of inquiry? Thrax asked, his voice carrying the formal tone of bureaucratic procedure. Preliminary security assessment for Summit 7, Zorax replied, not entirely untruthfully. Files will be transferred to your secure terminal within 1 rotation. Intelligence Directorate clearance accepted. As the connection faded, Zorax settled back into his containment chair. Something wasn't right. 6 summits without military representation couldn't be coincidence. Humans were known to be strategic, calculating. Survivors who had managed to join the Concord despite their relatively primitive technology. They had expanded throughout their solar system with remarkable speed once they developed basic, faster-than-light capabilities. They were hiding something, and Zorax was determined to find out what. The soft pulse of his communication band signaled an incoming transmission. The holodisplay showed the emblem of Bix, his immediate superior. Ambassador Zorax. The gravelly voice of the Vraxian intelligence director emanated from the device. The 7th Summit preparations proceed as scheduled? Yes, Director. However, I've initiated an investigation into Earth's diplomatic patterns. A momentary silence. Explain. For all 6 previous summits, Earth has sent only civilian representatives. No military presence whatsoever. It contradicts diplomatic convention. Your assessment? Zorax's mandibles twitched slightly. They're concealing something. Military capability, perhaps, or weakness. Proceed with caution. Ambassador. The humans have proven unpredictable allies. They joined the Concord during a period of significant internal transformation. Their integration remains delicate. Understood, Director. The transmission ended, leaving Zorax alone with his thoughts. He had 3 rotations to uncover what Earth was hiding before Summit 7 began. Time enough, he hoped, to expose whatever secret lay beneath their civilian facade. Dawn cycle on Pivot Station brought a soft amber glow to the diplomatic quarters. Zorax had spent most of the night examining the files archivist Thrax had transferred. Most contained standard diplomatic records, speeches, trade agreements, cultural exchange protocols. Nothing unusual. Until he found it. Buried within a subdirectory of first-year administrative protocols. Sigma 9 Directive. The file was small, almost inconsequential among the thousands of documents. But its classification level was among the highest Zorax had ever seen. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he read, "Following the events of Summit 1, 2550 GS. Earth delegates are hereby restricted from disclosing any military information, personnel details, or defense capabilities at all subsequent Concord functions. By unanimous agreement of the Security Council, this directive remains in effect until formally rescinded." Zorax's exoskeleton stiffened. "Events of Summit 1? What events?" He immediately directed his search toward incident reports from the first summit. Nothing appeared. No official documentation of any irregular occurrence involving Earth's delegation. Odd, very odd. Expanding his search parameters, Zorax accessed the NeuroArchive, a less structured repository containing memory recordings, sensory impressions, and unprocessed data. Here, in a small subsection devoted to neural patterns of non-conquered species, he found a single line of text. During First Contact Summit, presence of Earth military representative nearly triggered plasma exchange with Vraxian delegation. Incident classified under Sigma 9. Zorax froze. A plasma exchange? Between humans and his own species. How had this information been so thoroughly purged from official records? More importantly, why had his own government never briefed him on this incident? He needed more information, but standard channels would be too slow, too traceable. He tapped his communication band 3 times in rapid succession, then twice slowly, a pattern that would connect him to one of his most valuable assets. The hologram that appeared resembled a translucent, undulating mass of bluish gel, Krell, a gelatinous operative specialized in information retrieval. Their amorphous biology made them perfect infiltrators. "Ambassador," the gelatinous mass vibrated, producing speech. "How may I assist?" "Krell, I need everything on Sigma 9 Directive and any incident involving Earth delegates at Summit 1. Use tertiary channels only. No official requests." The mass rippled in acknowledgement. "Timeline? Before the welcoming reception tonight, the summit formally begins tomorrow." Understood. As the connection dissolved, Zorax contemplated his next move. Tonight's reception would be his first opportunity to observe the Earth delegation up close, particularly Ambassador Jackson. If humans were concealing military capability behind civilian titles, perhaps he could detect signs through close observation. For now, he had preparations to make and a report to file with Director Bix. He would omit mention of Sigma 9, of course. Some investigations were best kept quiet until they yielded results. The Crystal Hall lived up to its name. Its vast dome composed of multifaceted, transparent panels that shifted in hue and opacity to accommodate the visual preferences of each species. For the Lumrians, who required high humidity, the panels near their gathering space emitted a gentle mist. For the Vraxians, the lighting adjusted to a low blue spectrum that complemented their visual range. Zorax stood near one of the refreshment stations, observing the Earth delegation as they made their entrance. Ambassador Jackson led the group, her dark skin contrasting with the iridescent formal attire that seemed to be Earth's diplomatic uniform this cycle. She moved with practiced grace, pausing to greet representatives from various species, her smile consistent and controlled. Behind her, the security detail maintained formation, 4 humans in matching dark attire, led by Captain Nix Rodriguez. Zorax noted their movement patterns, the way they scanned the room, position themselves. They acted less like ceremonial guards and more like trained tactical units, maintaining optimal coverage while appearing casual. Most interesting. He made his way across the hall, accepting ritualistic greetings from various delegates. A mandible touch from the Zetulian war commander, a spine bow from the Lumrian high speaker. By the time he approached the Earth delegation, he had positioned himself to appear as though the encounter were coincidental. Ambassador Jackson. Zorax inclined his upper body slightly, a gesture humans considered respectful. Welcome to Pivot Station. I trust your journey was comfortable. Tia Jackson turned, her expression shifting smoothly from conversation with a Krith representative to acknowledgement of Zorax. Ambassador Zorax, thank you for your hospitality. The journey was quite pleasant. Your engineers have done remarkable work with the gravitational stabilizers on the approach path. Zorax noted her immediate recognition of him. She had studied the delegate roster thoroughly. Indeed, comfort across multiple physiologies remains a challenge, but one we continually refine. He gestured toward her security detail. I see you maintain the Earth tradition of civilian security representation. A nearly imperceptible tightening around her eyes. Interesting. Yes, of course, she replied smoothly. Under Charter 7.3, each member maintains the right to compose their delegation in accordance with their governmental system. Earth prioritizes civilian oversight in all matters, including security. Curious. Zorax allowed his inner eyelid to flicker, a sign of thoughtfulness that humans often misinterpreted as suspicion. Most species find military representation valuable for technical discussions and security protocols. Yet Earth has never included such representatives in 6 summits. Is that a concern, Ambassador? Her tone remained pleasant, but Zorax detected the slight shift in her posture, a defensive adjustment. Merely an observation. The Conquered thrives on mutual understanding of capabilities and limitations. Military perspectives often provide clarity. Jackson smiled. On Earth, civilian control of military affairs is a foundation of our democratic systems. Our representatives are fully briefed on all relevant matters. I assure you, we maintain transparency while respecting our constitutional requirements. Of course, Zorax inclined his head again. I look forward to our productive discussions during the summit. As he moved away, he caught the quick exchange of glances between Jackson and Captain Nix. Concern, wariness, hard to interpret human micro-expressions with certainty. But one thing was clear. His probing had elicited a reaction. Throughout the reception, Zorax continued his observations. The Earth delegates mingled extensively, particularly with species that had recently joined the Conquered. Jackson seemed especially attentive to the Krith collective representatives, an interesting choice, given the Krith's notorious distrust of species with aggressive histories. His communication band vibrated softly against his exoskeleton. Krell was ready to report, excusing himself from a tedious conversation with a Lumrian cultural attaché. Zorax made his way to a secure communication chamber adjacent to the reception hall. Once inside, he activated the privacy field and established connection. The gelatinous form of Krell appeared, its usual bluish hue now tinged with gray, a sign of distress among their kind. Report, Zorax commanded. Complications. Krell's form rippled anxiously. The files regarding Earth's military documentation from Summit 1 have been either purged or encrypted at the highest level. 3 of my sub-operatives attempted to access archival backups through the neuroarchive and experienced incidents. Explain. Protein restructuring in their neural pathways. They've lost all memory related to the investigation. The effect was immediate and precise, targeted only at memories of the specific inquiry. Zorax's exoskeleton stiffened. Biological intervention? Who has such capability? Unknown. Not standard Conquered security measures. These were something else. Krell's form contracted slightly. Ambassador, we encountered interference that doesn't match any known species' technological signature. Not Concord authorized. This was beyond concerning. If someone, or something, could selectively erase specific memories through remote intervention, it represented an unprecedented security threat. Continue monitoring, but withdraw your operatives from direct investigation, Zorax instructed. Focus on peripheral data, diplomatic communications before and after Summit 1, security staffing changes, anything that might indirectly reference the incident. Understood. Krell's form seemed to relax slightly. One additional note. I discovered that immediately following Summit 1, 3 high-ranking Vraxian officials were reassigned to distant outposts. All had been present at the summit. Names: War Supreme Klatax, Intelligence Operative Vrax, and Ambassador Zrix. All senior officials. All suddenly reassigned after the first summit. The pattern was becoming clearer. Something significant had occurred. Something serious enough to warrant memory manipulation and strategic reassignment of witnesses. Proceed with caution, Krell. This may be more sensitive than I initially assessed. As the hologram faded, Zorax contemplated his options. Standard intelligence gathering had proven dangerous. Direct questioning would likely be met with diplomatic deflection. That left one approach: formal inquiry during the summit itself. It was unprecedented, possibly even contrary to Concord protocol. But if Earth was concealing capabilities that could threaten galactic security, the risk was justified. Zorax would prepare a formal request for explanation to be presented during the administrative portion of tomorrow's opening session. Let Ambassador Jackson explain to the entire Assembly why Earth consistently violated diplomatic convention. Whatever they were hiding, it would soon be exposed to the light of 27 species scrutiny. The ceremonial bells echoed through Pivot Station's central spire, signaling the commencement of Summit 7. From docking bays and residential quarters, over 500 delegates converged on the Grand Assembly. Zorax had spent the night cycle preparing his statement. Director Bix would not approve of this approach. Direct confrontation rarely yielded optimal intelligence. But the unusual nature of the situation demanded unusual methods. The Grand Assembly itself was a marvel of adaptive architecture. Rather than a traditional circular chamber with elevated platforms, it featured a complex three-dimensional arrangement of seating areas, each calibrated for the physiology and gravitational preferences of different species. Vraxians occupied the lower gravity sections, their exoskeletons ill-suited to Earth-standard conditions. Lumrians hovered in mist-filled bubbles near the ceiling. Earth delegates sat in a standard gravity section alongside similar oxygen-breathing bipeds. High Speaker Shimmerong, a Lumrian whose translucent form glowed with bioluminescent patterns, floated to the central speaking platform. Its melodic voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustic design, began the traditional roll call. Representatives of the Galactic Concord, we gather for our 7th convergence of peaceful exchange and mutual advancement. As tradition dictates, each delegation will acknowledge their presence and commitment to our shared principles. One by one, representatives from each species activated their microphonic beacons, stating their presence and reaffirming commitment to the Concord Charter. When Ambassador Jackson's turn came, she stood with practiced dignity. Earth acknowledges the call and reaffirms our unwavering commitment to peace, cooperation, and the advancement of all sentient life within the Concord. Standard diplomatic language, Zorax noted. Nothing unusual in her statement or demeanor. After the roll call completed, High Speaker Shimmerong's tendrils undulated in a pattern indicating transition to business matters. Before we proceed to the summit agenda, we open the floor for administrative matters, procedural questions, or points of clarification regarding Concord governance. This was the moment. Zorax activated his microphonic beacon, the signal immediately registering with the speaker. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Zorax of Vraxia. Zorax rose, his 6 legs supporting him in the distinctive posture of formal address. His exoskeleton plates adjusted slightly, displaying the subtle blue pattern that indicated official diplomatic capacity. High Speaker, honored representatives, I raise a matter of procedural consistency regarding delegation composition. His voice, translated through the chamber systems, reached each delegate in their native language. For 6 consecutive summits, all member species have maintained consistent delegation protocols, including appropriate military representation to ensure security awareness and technical precision in matters of defense cooperation. All except one. A ripple of movement passed through the assembly as delegates shifted to give Zorax their full attention. Earth has never, in 6 summits, included formal military representation in their delegation. This deviation from established diplomatic practice raises concerns about transparency and full participation in conquered security matters. He turned slightly, his multifaceted eyes focusing on the Earth section. I formally request that Ambassador Jackson explain why Earth consistently deviates from this practice, and whether this indicates reluctance to fully engage with conquered security protocols. The chamber fell silent. Such direct challenges were rare in conquered proceedings, where most concerns were addressed through private diplomatic channels before reaching the assembly floor. High Speaker. Shimmerong's tendrils flickered with patterns indicating surprise, but the protocols were clear. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Jackson of Earth to respond to the inquiry. Tia Jackson rose with measured calm, her expression betraying nothing as she activated her microphonic beacon. She took a moment to survey the Assembly before speaking, a human technique for establishing presence. Zorax knew. Thank you, High Speaker. I appreciate Ambassador Zorax's concern for procedural consistency. Her voice carried a warmth that contrasted with the tense atmosphere. I would direct the ambassador's attention to Charter Section 7.3, which explicitly guarantees each member species the right to compose their delegations in accordance with their governmental structures and diplomatic traditions. She tapped her datapad, and the relevant section of the Charter appeared on the central display for all to see. Earth's democratic principles place civilian authorities as the ultimate arbiters of all governance, including security matters. Our delegation composition reflects this foundational aspect of our political structure. Zorax noted how several delegates were consulting their own references to the Charter. Jackson was technically correct. The provision existed precisely to accommodate the diversity of governance structures within the conquered. Furthermore, Jackson continued, I must note that after 6 successful summits with consistent Earth representation, this concern arises only now, at our 7th gathering. Her gaze fixed directly on Zorax. I wonder what specific developments have prompted this sudden scrutiny of a long-established practice. The implication was clear. She was suggesting ulterior motives. Zorax felt a momentary discomfort as delegates turned their attention back to him. This was not proceeding as he had anticipated. The consistency of the deviation is precisely what warrants examination, he responded. Patterns often reveal intentions not explicitly stated. Jackson's expression remained composed. Ambassador Zorax, if you have specific concerns about Earth's commitment to conquered security protocols, I would be happy to address them in a more appropriate setting. Raising speculative concerns before the General Assembly seems premature. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Zetulian war commander nodded slightly. He at least seemed to share Zorax's concerns. But the Lumrian delegates were displaying patterns of disapproval, and several other species showed signs of discomfort with the confrontational approach. High Speaker Shimmerong intervened. The Charter is indeed clear on delegation composition rights. Unless Ambassador Zorax wishes to propose a formal amendment to the Charter, this matter appears to be one of diplomatic preference rather than procedural violation. Zorax recognized the diplomatic opening Jackson had created. Pursuing this line of inquiry publicly would only make him appear obstructionist without yielding the answers he sought. "I seek only clarity and consistency in our proceedings," he stated. "If Ambassador Jackson is willing to discuss this matter in a separate consultation, I would welcome the opportunity for mutual understanding." "Of course," Jackson replied smoothly. "Transparency serves all our interests. Perhaps after today's session concludes?" "That would be acceptable." High Speaker Shimmerong's tendrils relaxed. "The matter is thus referred to bilateral consultation. We will now proceed to the summit agenda." As Zorax returned to his position, he caught the subtle exchange between Jackson and Captain Nix, a barely perceptible nod. They had anticipated his move and prepared their response. More interestingly, they had managed to turn a public challenge into a private meeting, exactly the scenario they preferred. The question remained, what were they hiding that required such careful management? The remainder of the day's session focused on trade agreement renewals and cultural exchange programs, matters of minimal interest to Zorax under normal circumstances. Today, however, he found himself studying the Earth delegates' participation with renewed attention. They were active contributors to discussions about technological standardization, offering insights about compatibility challenges for developing species. They were notably silent during debates about defense perimeter extensions in the Outer Rim territories. Whenever security matters arose, Ambassador Jackson deferred to her cultural attaché for responses focused on cooperative approaches rather than military solutions. The pattern was consistent with their civilian forward posture. Yet Zorax sensed a calculated precision in their interventions. They were neither passive nor aggressive. They were strategic, always steering conversations toward diplomatic rather than military framing. When the session concluded, Captain Nix approached Zorax's position. The human stood with perfect posture, her movements efficient and controlled. "Ambassador Zorax, Ambassador Jackson suggests the Nightfall Suite for your consultation. Its privacy field will ensure a frank exchange without diplomatic observers. Would 20 station time be acceptable?" The Nightfall Suite, one of the most secure locations on Pivot Station, equipped with the latest isolation technology. An interesting choice for what should be a straightforward diplomatic clarification. "That would be suitable," Zorax replied. "Will the ambassador be accompanied?" "Only by myself. As security protocol requires," Nix answered, her expression neutral. "The ambassador understands your concern for transparency and wishes to address it directly." "Very well, 20 As Captain Nix departed, Zorax considered the implications. The humans were clearly taking this confrontation seriously enough to arrange a meeting in a location where absolutely no recording or surveillance was possible. Whatever Jackson intended to reveal, she wanted no official record of it. The Nightfall Suite lived up to its name, a spacious chamber with walls that simulated the deepening colors of twilight, gradually shifting from amber to deep purple. Unlike most spaces on Pivot Station, it was designed for dual-atmosphere species, allowing both Zorax and the humans to breathe comfortably without assistance. Most importantly, it contained the most sophisticated privacy field technology in the known galaxy. Once activated, no signal, electromagnetic, quantum, or neural, could penetrate its boundaries. Not even the most advanced Concord surveillance systems could monitor conversations within. Ambassador Jackson and Captain Nix were already present when Zorax arrived, seated at a simple table crafted from Lumrian crystal, a material known to be inert to all forms of technological manipulation. "Ambassador Zorax," Jackson rose to greet him. "Thank you for agreeing to this private consultation." Zorax noted that she had changed from her formal diplomatic attire into something more subdued, practical clothing that allowed greater freedom of movement. Captain Nix remained in her security uniform, standing slightly behind Jackson's right shoulder. "Your choice of venue suggests this conversation extends beyond mere administrative clarification," Zorax observed, as he settled his exoskeleton into the specially designed seating area. Jackson nodded. You've raised a legitimate question, one that deserves a complete answer. However, that answer, if provided publicly, would have created immediate tension throughout the summit. Intriguing. Zorax's inner eyelid flickered. You admit, then, that Earth is concealing something from the General Assembly? Not concealing, Jackson corrected. Presenting appropriately. There's a distinction that becomes clear once you understand the full context. She turned to Captain Nix. Please secure the room. Nix activated the privacy field. A subtle shift in air pressure indicated the field had engaged, isolating them completely from outside observation. Ambassador, Jackson began. You discovered the Sigma-9 directive, didn't you? Zorax stiffened. He had not expected such directness. You seem well informed about my inquiries. When you began requesting classified files about Summit 1, several monitoring systems were activated. Jackson explained. Not conquered systems. Earth protocols established after the first summit. The memory alterations inflicted on Krell's operatives. Your doing? Jackson shook her head. Not directly. Automated security measures. Any attempt to access those specific files triggers neural safeguards. Such technology exceeds known Earth capabilities, Zorax stated, his suspicion mounting. Many things about Earth exceed known capabilities, Jackson replied. That's precisely the point of Sigma-9. She tapped a sequence on the table's embedded control panel. A holographic display appeared between them, showing neural scan profiles of various species. What you're seeing are comparative neural response patterns when faced with perceived threats, she explained. Vraxian, Zetulian, Lumrian, and several others, including human. Zorax studied the patterns, his specialized intelligence training allowing him to interpret the complex neural mappings. What he saw disturbed him deeply. This can't be accurate, he said, mandibles clicking rapidly. These human threat assessment patterns match Vraxian and Zetulian profiles at an 87% correlation rate. It's accurate. Captain Nix spoke for the first time. Humans possess innate threat analysis capabilities comparable to the most militaristic species in the Conquered. Jackson continued. What takes Vraxians years of specialized military training to develop? What Zetulians achieve through technological augmentation, humans possess naturally. Our neural architecture evolved on a predator-rich planet where threat assessment meant survival. But this doesn't explain the absence of military representatives, Zorax countered. It explains exactly that. Jackson leaned forward. Ambassador, what happens when a Vraxian war supreme enters a diplomatic chamber? Respect is established, Zorax answered automatically. No, Jackson corrected gently. Tension is created. Every other military representative immediately assesses the war supreme as a potential threat, calculating vulnerabilities, planning countermeasures. It's instinctive. Understanding began to dawn on Zorax, and humans trigger the same response. Exactly, Jackson nodded. During Summit 1, Earth sent a traditional diplomatic delegation including General Sandra Reyes, our highest military officer. Within minutes of entering the assembly, every military representative present became highly agitated. Your predecessor, War Supreme Claytax, nearly initiated combat protocols before the first session even began. The plasma exchange mentioned in the archives, Zorax realized. A diplomatic euphemism for what nearly became the first intergalactic incident since the Concord's formation, Jackson confirmed. You see, Ambassador, it wasn't General Reyes' weapons or uniform that created the problem. It was her mind, specifically, how other species' military representatives perceived her cognitive patterns. Captain Nix stepped forward. Military minds recognize each other. Ambassador, your species and others with highly developed combat instincts can subconsciously detect threat analysis patterns in others. General Reyes wasn't behaving aggressively. She was simply thinking like the military strategist she was trained to be. And this created an escalating feedback loop of threat perception, Zorax concluded, the pieces finally fitting together. Precisely, Jackson nodded. After that near disaster, an Emergency Security Council meeting established the Sigma-9 Directive. Earth agreed never to send openly designated military representatives to conquered functions. Instead, we integrated necessary security expertise within our civilian delegation. Zorax's gaze shifted to Captain Nix, seeing her in a new light. You're not merely security, you're military. Former Special Forces, Nix confirmed. Now serving in diplomatic security. The distinction is meaningful in our system. I answer to civilian authority, not military command. But you retain the training, the capabilities. Yes, Nix acknowledged. But I've been specifically conditioned to modulate my cognitive patterns in diplomatic settings. All Earth security personnel undergo extensive neural training to present as non-threatening while maintaining vigilance. Zorax absorbed this information, his perspective shifting dramatically. So Earth hasn't been concealing military weakness, but rather military strength, specifically, a form of cognitive warfare capability that triggers instinctive responses in other species. Cognitive warfare overstates it, Jackson said. We simply evolved with neural architecture that other species find concerning. We didn't design ourselves this way. Yet you've weaponized it, Zorax observed. Through concealment. We've neutralized it, Jackson corrected. By recognizing its potential to disrupt peaceful relations and taking appropriate measures. Zorax considered the implications. The Vraxians reassigned after Summit 1. They were witnesses to this incident. Their memories weren't altered. No need, Jackson explained. The Vraxian High Command recognized the same danger we did. They participated in creating Sigma-9 and implemented their own protocols. Those reassignments were voluntary. Your predecessors understood that maintaining the secret was essential for conquered stability. And now I know as well, Zorax said. What do you expect me to do with this information? Jackson's expression became solemn. That's entirely your decision, Ambassador. We've maintained this arrangement for 6 summits because it serves peace. If you believe exposing it would better serve the conquered, that's your prerogative. Though I would caution, Nix added, that revealing this particular human capability might trigger precisely the response Sigma-9 was designed to prevent. Instinctive threat assessment across multiple species simultaneously. The implication was clear. Knowledge of humans' innate strategic capabilities could itself become a destabilizing factor in intergalactic relations. You're suggesting I maintain the deception, Zorax stated. I'm suggesting you consider the purpose behind it, Jackson replied. Sometimes peace requires not displaying strength rather than flaunting it. For the first time since beginning his investigation, Zorax felt uncertain. His Vraxian instincts valued directness, transparency in matters of strength. Yet the logic of Earth's approach was undeniable. They hadn't concealed capability out of deception, but out of a genuine desire to avoid triggering conflict. I will need time to consider this information, he finally said. Of course, Jackson nodded. The summit reconvenes tomorrow morning. Whatever you decide, we will respect your judgment. As the privacy field deactivated and Zorax prepared to leave, Captain Nix approached him directly. Ambassador, she said quietly, I trained for 15 years to learn how not to appear threatening while maintaining full tactical awareness. Every human in security services does the same. We work hard to ensure we can protect without provoking. I hope you'll consider that effort when making your decision. It was, Zorax realized, the most personal statement he had ever heard from a human security officer. A glimpse behind the carefully maintained facade of neutrality. I will, he promised. As he returned to his quarters, Zorax's mind raced with implications. The humans weren't hiding weapons or technology. They were hiding an aspect of their fundamental nature that other species found instinctively threatening. More remarkable still, they had recognized this problem themselves and implemented countermeasures before anyone demanded it. Was this deception, or was it a profound form of diplomatic wisdom? His hibernation pod remained uninviting as Zorax spent the station's night cycle reviewing everything he had learned. The conclusions were inescapable. If unsettling, humans possessed natural cognitive abilities that made them extraordinary strategic thinkers, comparable to the most militaristic species in the conquered. They had recognized how this triggered threat responses in others and voluntarily removed military titles from their delegations to minimize tension, all while maintaining the capability through security personnel trained to modulate their cognitive signatures. By morning cycle, Zorax had reached his decision. As delegates gathered for the second day of Summit 7, he noticed increased attention directed his way. News of his confrontation with Ambassador Jackson had clearly spread throughout the diplomatic community. Speculation about Earth's response undoubtedly dominated private discussions. When High Speaker Shimmerong opened the session, Zorax immediately activated his microphonic beacon. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Zorax of Raxia. Rising to his full height, Zorax addressed the chamber. Honored representatives, I wish to address yesterday's inquiry regarding Earth's delegation composition. The Assembly fell silent, all attention focused on the Vraxian ambassador. Following productive consultation with Ambassador Jackson, I have gained fuller understanding of Earth's diplomatic approach. Their adherence to civilian oversight is indeed consistent with their constitutional governance, as guaranteed under Charter Section 7.3. He could sense the surprise rippling through the Assembly. They had anticipated continued confrontation, not retraction. I withdraw my concerns and acknowledge Earth's right to determine their representation according to their cultural and governmental traditions. Their commitment to conquered principles remains evident through 6 successful summits of constructive engagement. Across the chamber, Ambassador Jackson nodded slightly in acknowledgement, her expression revealing nothing of their private conversation. High Speaker Shimmerong's tendrils displayed patterns of approval. The Assembly notes Ambassador Zorax's statement. Does Ambassador Jackson wish to respond? Jackson activated her beacon, only to express appreciation for Ambassador Zorax's thoughtful consideration of our diplomatic traditions. Earth remains fully committed to transparent cooperation with all conquered members within the framework of our shared principles. Diplomatic language that revealed nothing of what had transpired in the Nightfall Suite. Then we consider this matter resolved, Shimmerong concluded. Let us proceed to today's agenda. As the summit returned to its scheduled discussions, Zorax observed the Earth delegation with new perspective. Their security personnel, Captain Nix and her team, maintained positions that optimized coverage while appearing casual. Their eyes constantly scanned for threats, while their expressions remained neutral. They were, he now understood, performing an extraordinary balancing act, remaining vigilant without triggering the threat response mechanisms of other species' military representatives. The War Supreme of Raxia caught Zorax's eye from across the chamber, a subtle mandible movement indicating curiosity about his retraction. The Zetulian military commander similarly showed signs of dissatisfaction with the resolution. They had hoped, perhaps, for revelations that would diminish Earth's standing or expose vulnerability. Instead, Zorax had chosen to preserve a secret, one that protected not just Earth's diplomatic position, but the stability of the entire conquered. The summit proceeded with remarkable efficiency. Trade agreements were finalized, cultural exchange programs expanded, and a new security treaty for the Outer Rim territories received unanimous approval. Earth's delegates contributed actively to all discussions, their approach consistently emphasizing cooperation over confrontation, even in matters of defense. When the final session concluded 3 days later, Summit 7 was declared the most productive gathering in conquered history. Species that had previously maintained cautious distance had established new partnerships. Defense protocols had been harmonized without increasing militarization. The peaceful expansion of cooperative ventures into previously contested regions had been approved without a single dissenting vote. As delegates prepared to depart, Ambassador Jackson approached Zorax at the closing reception. "Your decision was appreciated, Ambassador," she said quietly. "Not everyone would have seen the wisdom in maintaining Sigma-9." "I remain uncertain if wisdom is the correct term," Zorax replied. "Strategic necessity, perhaps." Jackson smiled. "Sometimes they're the same thing." She glanced around at the diverse gathering of species. "Look at what we've accomplished this week. 27 fundamentally different evolutionary paths, finding common ground, building something greater than any could achieve alone. While carefully managing our differences," Zorax added. "Exactly. The Conquered doesn't require us to be identical, only to understand our differences well enough to prevent them from becoming obstacles." "A philosophy your species seems particularly adept at implementing," Zorax observed. "We've had practice," Jackson acknowledged. "Earth's history contains enough conflict to teach us the value of peace. Sometimes, that means not displaying strength when doing so would only provoke fear." As they parted ways, Zorax found himself reflecting on this final insight. The human's approach contradicted Vraxian instinct, which valued direct display of capability as a means of establishing respect. Yet, he could not deny the effectiveness of their method. By concealing their natural strategic abilities, they had earned trust and built partnerships that might otherwise have been impossible. Returning to his quarters to prepare for departure, Zorax recorded his final observations in his personal log. The human potential lies not in exceptional technology, but in the combination of innate strategic capacity and the discipline to modulate it according to circumstance. They have taught me that peace does not arise from weakness, but from the careful management of strength. Their method of hiding in plain sight represents a sophisticated approach to diplomacy that warrants further study. By presenting civilian facades while maintaining vigilance, they navigate intergalactic relations with remarkable effectiveness. I will continue to observe Earth's participation in future summits, not with suspicion, but with appreciation for their subtle approach to power dynamics. Perhaps there is wisdom in concealment that my species has yet to fully appreciate. As he sealed his hibernation pod for the journey home, Zorax recalled Jackson's parting words. Sometimes, true strength lies in the ability to choose not to display it. A concept contrary to Vraxian tradition, yet undeniably effective in practice. Would he incorporate this insight into his own diplomatic approach? Or would he maintain traditional Vraxian directness while simply understanding the human's different method? The answer would emerge over time, shaped by the continuing evolution of the Conquered itself. For now, he had discovered a secret worth keeping, not to protect Earth's advantage, but to preserve the delicate balance that made peaceful cooperation possible among 27 distinct evolutionary paths. As the hibernation sequence initiated and consciousness began to fade, Zorax wondered what other surprises awaited in future summits. The humans had demonstrated remarkable adaptability in just 50 years of Conquered membership. What would they reveal or conceal in the decades to come? That question would have to wait for Summit 8.